A very good evening to everyone. Myself, Shaurodip Adhikari. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to this extraordinary webinar on the dynamic absolute in the Tantras of Kali, organized by Modok Trainer Academy. Kali, the fierce, the motherly, the cosmic, holds within her the secrets of life, death, and transcends. She is the only one. She is the ultimate. Her tantras are a map to the absolute, where energies merge and profound truths are revealed. Now, I would like to share a few words with you about our today's eminent speaker. We are incredibly fortunate to have Dr. Arghya Dipta Kar as the eminent speaker in our today's webinar. He is a distinguished scholar who did his PhD in Tantric Shaktism from Jamia Millia Islamia University in 2016. He serves as the Young Scholars Group Coordinator at the Tantra Foundation, led by Professor Madhu Khanna, and is an editorial board member of the Journal of Dharma Studies, Asian and Transcultural Religion, Philosophy and Ethics under Springer Nature, as well as Caesurae, Poetics of Cultural Translation. Dr. Arghya Dipta Kar has published numerous academic articles on Shakta Tantras in esteemed journals and books. Besides his scholarly work, he is also a painter specializing in Tantric art, trained under Sri Swapan Das, who descends from the line of Nandalal Bose. Bearing the legacy of the Bengal School of Art, his artwork has been featured in solo and group exhibitions and published in books and art journals. Notably, his painting Kalipura was featured on the cover of Julias Strubebsis' Global Tantra by Oxford University Press in 2022. Dr. Arghya Dipta Kar has also contributed as a researcher to mythological TV shows on various TV channels like Star Jalsa, Colors Bangla, etc. Currently, he teaches English at Sonarpur Mahavidyalaya. His first book, Shakta Darshan o Dashamahavidya, was published in 2023, adding to his impactful contributions to Tantric Shaktism studies and art. So, let us embark on this sacred exploration together, one of passion, mystery, and awakening. Now, I humbly request to Dr. Arghya Dipta Kar, sir, please start your valuable lecture.
Good evening. Extend forth my heartiest thanks to Modok Trainer Academy for inviting me here. Uh, I'm going to talk about the dynamic absolute in the tantras of Kali. Something related to philosophy. It might seem a bit boring, but I would try to make it as interesting as possible. Fine. Let's begin with the question. So, what, according to the general perception, is the nature of the absolute, of course, in philosophical terms, in terms of Indian philosophy? So, generally, we tend to conceptualize this whole matter, the absolute, as something static, something unmoving, unchanging, eternally fixed. And the phenomenal world around is something dynamic, moving around it. But the absolute is something transcending the phenomenal world. So when you reach the absolute, you transcend dynamism into total stasis, right? This is how we have been taught to think of the absolute. Now, if I present before you an alternative model of conceptualizing the whole structure of how to form your idea about the absolute. Okay, one small example. Say, my hand is here, it's fixed. I say it's static. Static, unmoving, something that doesn't move. This hand is moving and this hand is static. It is static. But if I say no, what I see static, if I go into it, inside, I see molecules constantly moving, atoms and molecules forming and dismantling. What would I say? What appears static from outside is also dynamic from within, and only because that dynamism is going on that you see this hand as static. Had there been no molecular movement inside, like, would it have been possible for you to have this hand standing like this? Well, so this is just the key to the whole matter that I'm going to discuss today. So now, the Shakta philosophy actually poses this question to all the earlier philosophical schools that were that were conceptualizing the idea of a static absolute. It proposed, like, the Shakta philosophy comes up with the idea of a dynamic absolute. In what way dynamic? These things we're going to discuss today. Okay, and kindly please check me if I go too fast. Okay, because I have this tendency. Now, okay, whenever we talk about, say, Shakta philosophy, well, the term philosophy. So every time we think of philosophy, we mean a well organized, systematized canon, well said doctrines, well defined doctrines. This is this is that. But all our systems, all our philosophical systems, the six philosophical doctrines of the Indian, what to say, like the Vedic school, the Shakta Darshan, Vedanta, Sankhya, Mimamsa, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, they all have well documented textual canons where all their doctrines, all their discourses are properly, systematically articulated. But the problem is that Shakta philosophy does not have any systematized canon. It lies scattered, it lies fragmented, and most of it lies codified in the ritual. So now you might say, well, in that case, can you say that anything called Shakta philosophy ever exists? By the way, the term Shakta derives from Shakti, the divine dynamic principle. Well, you might say that the philosophical system pertaining to the cult of Shakti. Well, is there at all any philosophical system? We don't have any school. No specific school of philosophy called Shakta philosophy is ever taught in any Indian university or even outside. Now, the thing is that the Shakta texts that we find are mostly about rituals, kriya. Now, what you need to understand is that what I'm calling Shakta philosophy is actually lying encoded in the rituals that are performed in course of sadhana. And as a result, now these rituals, of course, they are highly esoteric and they are kept secret owing to certain factors because these cannot be revealed. The agamic teachings. So they are passed only through the guru lineage, the guru parampara. And obviously, they are hardly ever recorded textually, but still, I would say that some amount of fragmented philosophical discourses are there across the tantras of the Shakta school. Now, first of all, let me tell you that Shaktism as a religion, the worship of the goddess, we must most of us know that historically we can't question its antiquity. Now, the worship of mother goddesses, like the mother goddesses have been worshipped since the Harappa Mohenjo-daro times. Later, the Vedic and the Puranic religion, when they took over the whole religious culture, then male gods came into prominence. But prior to that, female goddesses were worshipped widely. But why have not they been able to form any philosophical system of their own? And whenever the Shaktas developed a canon, a philosophical canon of themselves, they had to structure it along the lines of the Shaiva philosophy. So now you see, but like very interestingly, what we see that when the Shaktas they form their own philosophical canon along the lines of the Shaiva, this itself is a big journey. Now, Alexis Sanderson, he explores this whole journey of how the Shakta Tantras they gain predominance. If we look at the history of Shaivism, how Shaivism in Kashmir evolved, there are various stages. Now, whenever we talk about Kashmir Shaivism, we talk about Utpal Gupta, Abhinava Gupta, but now see, these are finished products. You must look what there in the background. You don't have philosophy here without rituals. Rituals come first. And from the rituals, we derive all these theoretical principles, which at times we need to adjust with the demand of the audience, like the readers. But the rituals, they remain the core essence of philosophy. I mean, they contain the core essence of the philosophy. Now, what we see in the history of the evolution of Shaivism, first, there was the Atimarga stream. The Atimarga was basically what to say, a stream of Shaivite ascetic, like a group of Shaivite ascetics who dwelt in the cremation grounds and whose practices, whose rituals, sadhana was solely focused on mukti. Now, in the Atimarga, Rudra, the deity Rudra was worshipped, and he was worshipped all alone without any female companion. But gradually, this Atimarga evolved into the Mantra Marga. What happened in the Mantra Marga? In the Mantra Marga, the rituals, like they became more esoteric and were directed towards both liberation and higher occult powers. And then what happened? When Shaivism evolved from the Ati Marga to the Mantra Marga. Now it's a rising graph, okay, not declining graph, fine. It evolved into Mantra Marga. Then a number of goddesses were assimilated into the cult of Shiva. First, you see, they had Shiva at the center, of course. Shiva was the supreme god, but there were like there were bands of goddesses around. Have you seen the 64 yogini tantras in Odisha, Madhya Pradesh? This Aniket and others. You see that a circular mandala of yoginis is like you can see, and at the center there is Bhairava. Now the cult of Bhairava from Rudra to Sadashiva in the Shaiva Siddhanta, from there to Bhairava, it began to rise. And from the Atimarga, then what happened gradually? Female goddesses began to gain predominance. Then, first you had only singularly Shiva, then Shiva surrounded by female goddesses. When it rose higher, then these goddesses, like from a number of goddesses, you had one powerful goddess sitting with Shiva at the center. So now they are having an equal footing together. Gradually, so you're gradually entering into the Bhairava Tantra, the Kapalika Tantra, from the Mantra Peeth, Vidya Peeth, and there are other classifications. I'm not going into that. Those are too technical. Gradually, you had Shiva accompanied with a female deity, Bhairava and Bhairavi. The more you rose, what happened? Goddesses began to rise above Shiva. They began to transcend Bhairava. And then you had Bhairava lying below and the goddesses sitting above. You see it in the iconography of Kali. The image of Bhairava is lying supine below and the goddess is sitting above. And more it rose, at the final stage, where the goddess alone, Bhairava, is totally absorbed into her. So from single Shiva, like from the the singular presence of Shiva, you have the singular presence of the goddess. There's a gradual rise in the graph. And the Shakta Tantras, they gradually gained independence. From this Bhairava Tantras, you had this, like it got further classified into Mantra Peeth, Vidya Peeth, and the Shakti Tantras, the Vidya Peeth. Vidya, the term means female deity, the mantra of a female deity. From the Vidya Peeth, you have the Shakti Tantra, from the Trika. By the way, most of you have heard about Trika philosophy. Of course, by Trika now we understand Abhinava Gupta's Anuttara Trika, but I'm telling you again, that's a finished product after he has totally, systematized the philosophy in Shaivite terms. But Trika as a ritual system is based on the worship of three goddesses, Para, 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 and Apara. And then we move into Krama, which is the highest, the most esoteric level of Kashmir Shaivism. And there you have the concept of Kali, and there Kali reigns supreme. She has her own band of deities around her, subordinate, like I won't say subordinate, like associate deities, and then you rise at the level of Kali, from Rudra to Sadashiva to Bhairava to Kali. This is the graph. Okay. Now let me come to the philosophical aspect of it. Now, when the philosophy was like all what to say, the Jnana Kanda, the philosophical doctrines encoded in these rituals were articulated in textual terms, in logic, like in terms of logical discourses. Then we have a wonderful, like we have this Pratyabhijna system, this Trika system, okay, the Spanda system, and all these schools gradually emerged. Now, this all happened at the erudite level. We have Utpal Deva, then sorry, the Somananda, Utpal Deva, Shemra, the Abhinava Gupta, Shemraj, all these scholars, they have highly contributed to the articulation of the Shaivite philosophy. Now, what is the core? Like, how, like, uh, 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 mm, the defining points of this Kashmiri Shaiva philosophy, the non-dualistic Shaiva philosophy. In order to understand that, first we need to move a bit little to the conventional Shad Darshana. So we must have heard, like most of you, I don't know like how many of you are quite familiar with these things. Now, Advaita Vedanta, Sankhya, how these systems, how these systems have evolved their own ontological scheme. In Advaita Vedanta, it says that all what, like, in this entire universe, the only truth is Brahma. Brahma is the only truth, and Brahma is Satchit Ananda, existence, consciousness, and bliss, and therefore Brahma has no action. Brahma has no function. Brahma has no activity. Brahma is inactive. I was talking about the inactive absolute. So now the problem is that if Brahma is inactive, if it is not active, then how do you have this world around you? Advaita Vedanta, Shankara's Advaita Vedanta, Shankaracharya's would say that all what we see around is actually an illusory projection upon Brahma. Like the metaphor they use is that of an illusory snake, like the illusion of a snake projected upon a rope. Suppose I am moving in the dark, I see a rope, I say, oh my God, it's a snake. But does the rope become the snake? Actually, it doesn't become. The rope is the rope. The rope is always the rope. Then when I'm enlightened, I realize, oh my God, this is not a snake, this is a rope. Similarly, all what we see around is actually Brahma. The world, neither does it exist, nor does it, like, neither is it existent because actually it is not there, nor is it non existent because you have the appearance of it. So this cannot be defined, whether the world is actually existing or not existing. But Brahma is the actually existing principle. So that is the non-dual truth. So ultimately, the absolute is static in Advaita Vedanta. Now, the Sankhya system, of course, it came earlier. The Sankhya system of Kapila, it would say that no, the world is not an illusion. The world has evolved out of primordial matter called Prakriti. Now, Prakriti does not mean what we call nature, Gaspala, and all these things. Prakriti means the equilibrium of the three gunas, Sattva, Raja, Tama, from which the mind, the intellect, mind, sense organs, and all these things evolve, and we see the world around us. But this Prakriti is inert, it is Jada, it is unconscious. And the self within is consciousness, it is Purusha. So ultimately, in Sankhya, you have two primordial principles, the highest, like there's a scheme of 25 tattvas, 25 elements, and the highest of the two are first Purusha, then Prakriti. Mind it, Purusha above, Prakriti below. Because Prakriti is the material cause of the universe, and Purusha is consciousness, which is just the witness. Everything is happening. Oh, no, no, I am not into it. I am separate from Prakriti. When Purusha is able to dissociate itself from Prakriti, Purusha is liberated. So ultimately, the highest reality is transcendent and inactive, static. And the products of Prakriti, the dynamic Prakriti, they are to be transcended. Now, the Shaivite philosophy, the philosophy of the non-dualistic Shaiva school, they would say, okay, when you say that the absolute is consciousness or sat, being, something which is existing, is not existence itself an activity? I am existing. This hand is there, is not is a verb. Does not a verb imply activity? So being, something is there, something is, a being is there, and the act of being is not the act of being an activity. I come to the same metaphor that the hand is there, but you see molecules operating with it. So is not existence itself an activity, is not, and of course, so you cannot say that absolute is static. There cannot be anything called absolute stasis. Whenever there is something static, there is a dynamism, subtle dynamism going on within. You cannot negate that. Now when we say that, okay, fine, the Shiva, the ultimate principle, Shiva is in a static state. Shiva has not yet started his task of creation. He is in a static state. Now Somananda would say in his Shiva Drishti that, okay, fine, now when we say that Shiva is existing in a static state, this existence itself is an act. So of course an act is going on. Okay, I will remain static only when I wish. I will remain static. I have this desire in me to be static. There is itcha. Now, when, let's just say, for first, there is, now this is the activity being static. Now, whenever there is an activity, there is a choice, a thought. No, I have to be static. So kriya, then jnana. He is aware, okay, I have to be static, and he has chosen to be static because he has the will to be static. So ichha, jnana, and kriya. These three powers are operative even when Shiva is in his static. So I don't know, have I been able, to explain the thing? I mean, like you might feel like free to question. But whenever there is a static being, there is always a will operative behind it that it should be static. So there is nothing called absolute static. Now, whenever will comes in, itcha, gyan, kriya, we are into activity, we are into dynamism. And this dynamic energy is called Shakti. So whenever you say Shiva, there is all, the term Shiva has an E in it, right? If you remove that E, it becomes Shava, which means dead. So if you remove Shiva, where even when he is static, he is not Shava, because Shakti is still operative within. So without Shakti, there can be no Shiva. Shiva Shaktya Yukto Yadi Bhavati Shakta Prabhavitum. Shankaracharya has later, I don't know whether this is at all by the same Shankaracharya, but that's a debatable point, not going to that. But now, when you accept an element of dynamism in the absolute, so how now the Kashmirian philosophy is like, it centers on the concept of the absolute as consciousness or chit. How does it define chit? Now, it is well acknowledged everywhere that chit is prakasha. Prakasha means light, something that illuminates. Now, the Kathopanishad says that where there is the absolute light, there is no sun, no moon, no fire, because the absolute consciousness does not need anything to illuminate it. It illuminates everything. Tameva bhant, the consciousness illumines everything, and but is not illuminated by anything else. So that is prakasha, light. The bulb, now I can see everything because of the bulb, but does this bulb need anything else to illuminate it? Illuminate it doesn't. So consciousness is something like that. Now the question is that even this bulb, it illuminates everything. Bulb illuminates everything. A fire, a gem, a torchlight would do the same thing. Now, can we call these consciousness? Can we call this bulb consciousness? Can we call a gem which spreads light around consciousness? No. Why? Because although this bulb illuminates everything around, it is not aware of itself that I am illuminating the world around. It has no cognitive awareness. Now, this cognitive awareness is a defining factor of consciousness. You have illumination, you have cognitive awareness. You cannot have consciousness without either of these two. Whenever there is illumination, which is called prakasha, there is of like there has to be a cognitive awareness along with it, and this cognitive awareness constantly, I'm knowing that I am illuminating. I am illuminating. Now, this knowing is an act. it's an activity. So you have Prakasha and Vimarsha together forming consciousness. Now, this is a revolutionary concept in the Shaivagam, like the Shaiva philosophy. Now, Prakasha is Shiva, Vimarsha is Shakti. Now, whenever you acknowledge a dynamic energy in Shiva, inherent means it is always there. Without it, you cannot have the other. Abhinavbhav. Without Prakasha, you cannot have Vimarsha. Without Vimarsha, you cannot have Prakasha. Most of us, we have the tendency to think at first there was Shiva, then all of a sudden he felt that, oh no, I should create the world, and Vimarsha came into existence. No, had there been no Vimarsha, there would not have been any Prakasha as well. So there is Prakasha means that Vimarsha is already there. Shakti is already there in Shiva. She spreads herself out and withdraws herself in. That's it. Not that she is ever produced by Shiva's will. And can anything that has no dynamism ever will? I say that I will, that I let me, eko ham bahusyam. But if I don't have that willpower within me, can it ever manifest? If it does not exist, like had it not been existent in me previously, could it manifest outside? So the power, the dynamic power is always in Shiva, is always with Shiva, and is always Shiva itself. I would be coming into it later. When you acknowledge this dynamic energy in Shiva, then no, dynamic energy, now there are several terms that define the dynamic energy in the Shaivite philosophical school. That Vimarsha, I have explained the term, and one more term, there are several terms: Vimarsha, Vak, Satta, Spuratta. Now, how is this Vimarsha? Satta, I will show you. Because why Satta? Satta means Satta, Sara. Satta, Sara means essence. What is it? It is that. What is hand? It is a, what to say, a congregate of molecules. So what and that. What is Shiva? Shiva is the dynamic energy that is operative within. So Sara, essence. She's the core essence of Shiva. Satta, existence. I have talked about existence, Sara. And one more term is very important, Swatantra. Swatantra means absolute freedom. This I need to explain a bit. In Advaita Vedanta, where Brahma is static, is anything which is static ever be free? A dead body is lying there. Can the dead body rise and dance? It cannot. It does not have the freedom to be anything other than what it is at its present state, right? If I say that this laptop is lying here, can this laptop rise and, okay, fine, move around? It cannot, because it is bound by its present condition. So when we talk about Brahma in Vedanta or Purusha in Sankhya, aren't they limited in their own states? Can Brahma be dynamic? No, because Brahma does not have that freedom. Purusha cannot move because Purusha does not have that freedom. But when you acknowledge the dynamic energy in Shiva, it automatically implies that Shiva has the freedom to be and become anything. I can become a mug, I can become a mobile, I can become a book, whatever I will. Let there be light, I became light. Let there be air, I became air. Let there be fire, I became everything. And despite becoming everything, I am what I am. I can even become anything else. This whole freedom, play with his own being, like to multiply himself, again to become one, remain one in multiplicity. This freedom of being and becoming, this is Swatantra. And whatever seems impossible to from our level, even that becomes possible from there. Shiva can become Anu, and yet huge. It can become as tiny as an atom, yet it can become as huge as a mountain. Why? By virtue of what? By virtue of this freedom, this Swatantra. Now, this Vimarsha Shakti has been called Saspuratta, Mahasatta, Desha Kala Visheshani, Saisha Sarataya Prokta, Hridayam Parameshtina. So, this Puratta, always flashing, she is always manifesting herself, pouring herself out. Mahasatta, great being, Shiva's existence is defined by her. Desha Kala Visheshini. Now, this dynamism is not conditioned by time or space. Usually, we see dynamism conditioned by time. My hand is here, it is moving. Defined by time, the movement is defined by time and space. Now it is here, now it is here. In our worldly sense, dynamism is always conditioned by time and space. But that absolute dynamism in Shiva is not conditioned by time and space. It is eternally, it is totally freely. It is operate like it is like flashing. Spuratta. Spurat means spurt out. It is always flashing within itself. Saisha Sarataya Prokta. Since she is the Sara, the essence of Shiva, Hridayam, just as the heart, without if the heart is taken out, okay, dug out, can we exist? Will die. She is the heart of Shiva. Without that heart, you won't be having Shiva. Shiva would be dead, non-existent. Okay, Hridayam Parameshna, she is the heart of Shiva. Now, and of course, the heart is of a triangular shape, right? And even that Shakti is of Icha, Jnana, Kriya, triadic. And of course, there's a pentadic dimension as well. I'll come into it later. Okay, now when you accept this freedom, absolute freedom, do you need to say that the world is an illusion, the world does not exist, the world is just, I mean, not exist, neither exists, not that exists, or it is just a product of Prakriti, you need to withdraw from the world? Why? If I'm free, I don't need any Maya or any Prakriti. I myself can become the world. Shiva himself can become the world, because now here, earlier you had Brahma and Maya, two separate principles. Of course, Advaita Vedanta would say Brahma is the only existent thing, and Maya does not. Maya is neither existent nor existent, whatever. Sankhya would say the Purusha and Prakriti. And even when it says so, or even when it claims to be Advaita, I mean Advaita Vedanta, the moment it distinguishes Brahma from Maya, somewhere or other, a covered Dvaitva does come in. It is not able to transcend it. Even when we say that we have transcended the dualism of transcendence and immanence, that is done at the cost of immanence. You do away with the immanent and you keep the transcendent alone, and you say that, okay, fine, this is the only being. Now, here, the two poles, static and dynamic, have been fused into one in the agamic, the Shaiva Agamas. Shiva and Shakti are one and the same thing. The static is dynamic and the dynamic is static. So you don't need to have any Maya or any Prakriti. This itself evolved out as the world, projects itself in multiple ways. It's almost like an artist projecting forth his imagination, his or her creative imagination. Jagat Chittam Samalikya Svecha Tulikayatmi. Shiva is constantly painting the world upon himself with his own Icha, the Icha Shakti. Had this Icha Shakti been not, had an artist did not have this artistic potential, would he have been an artist? No. So so the world is actually Shiva himself pours himself out. Shiva evolve. Again, Abhasavad, Parinamavad is a different debate altogether. For a very basic understanding, I'm saying that Shiva evolves into the world, of course, not changing in his own nature. Now, Samkhya, I told you, has a scheme of 25. Now, I'm coming to the next topic, the Tatva scheme in Shaivism. Now, Sankhya posits a scheme of 25 tattvas from Prithvi, the five elements, five senses, and everything, up to Prakriti and Purusha. What do the Shaiva, like the Shaiva masters did? Like, what did the Shaiva masters do? Samkhya is dualistic, Prakriti and Purusha, two principles. Now, the Shaivite masters, what they did, they merged the two into one Shiva Shakti, which is simultaneously static and dynamic, simultaneously consciousness and energy. In order to achieve that, what did they do? Above the scheme of 25 tattvas, they placed 11 more tattvas. And finally, they arrived at a point where this whole creation merged into Shiva. Now here we see, and that is the Shiva Tattva. Of course, in that scheme, Shiva Tattva comes first, Shakti Tattva comes next, then Sadashiva, Ishvara, Shuddha Vidya, Maya, the five Kanchukas, and then Purusha, then Prakriti, and the other Tattvas of Sankhya. So, considered from this scheme, considered from this point of view, we say that Shiva is the highest principle. Of course, since it's a Shaiva philosophy, it would be always placing Shiva higher than the Shakti principle. Although the two are one, yet it posits Shiva in a higher position. Now, tell me one thing. I present a scale, a ladder of like a hierarchical scheme of things from below to above, and end up at one final point, the final cause, the first cause. So I say that this is the ultimate point. Another person comes up, puts another model, suggests another model. Say, okay, fine. You have dissolved the effect into the cause. You have been dissolving the effect into the cause, that cause into its cause, and finally you have arrived at Shiva. But I do not consider this as the highest tattva, but I consider the entire expanse as the highest thing. Which which one do you think is actually belongs to a higher category? In one end, you have all the lower tattvas dissolved at like a hierarchical scale, like culminating at one particular point, the first cause. And at another hand, you have this entire hierarchy contained within one undivided whole. Which one would you say the highest scheme? Am I being able to explain the point? If anyone confused, please ask me. Let me explain it in terms of Sri Ramakrishna. It's a wonderful example that when we rise up the ladder, suppose I'm going to reach the roof, I rise up the ladder, I keep on transcending one step from another, and I rise up. When I rise up, I reach the roof, then I see that the same material with which the roof is made, the entire building, the bricks, the the windows, the walls, the floor, everything else, the same material has like constitutes the entire building. The first he calls Brahma Jnana, and the second he calls Brahma Vijnana. Brahma Jnana is rising above the world and reaching the absolute. And Brahma Vijnana is the point when you see the same absolute which is above has expanded into the entire universal scheme. So here we come from the Prakriya Shastra to the Shara Shastra. In now the Shaiva Siddhantas, there are several schools within the Kashmirian school. The Shaiva Siddhanta, they follow the Prakriya Shastra, that is dissolving the lower tattvas, the highest tattvas, and arriving at Shiva. This is one scheme, Prakriya. Now the Sara Shastra model would say that no, we consider the entire thing, Shivadik Shiti Parjanta, starting from Shiva up to Dikshiti, the entire expanse, that we consider to be the highest tattva, because that is simultaneously Tatvatita and Tattvamaya. That is, Shiva tattva is Vishwatita, transcending the universe. But this newer scheme, it says it is simultaneously Vishwatita and Vishwamaya. It integrates the Shiva, the hierarchical scale excludes the lower tattvas and rises to the higher. But the Sara Shastra, it integrates the entire tattva scheme. That is the Sara Shastra. There we arrive at the 37th tattva, which is called Paramashiva and also Parashakti. Why Parashakti? Because this Sara Shastra perspective comes from the Shakta Tantras. Because expanse or manifestation, Pratha, Prasara, is very much a Shakta concept. It's the activity of Shakti only. Now, if you look at the Shakta Tantra, the Nitya Shoroshi Karnava, it gives a very, like there is a very powerful line, an important line, that Tasya Parinatayam Natu Kashchit Para Ishyate. Means, when that Supreme Shakti, she has evolved into everything. She has evolved in right from the Shiva Tattva down to the Kshiti Tattva. She has evolved into everything. There remains nothing beyond her. So this is a revolutionary statement. Now, this concept has derived from the Shakta Tantra. When we say that Parama Shiva is beyond the 36 Tattva, if we say the Shiva Tattva is the highest Tattva, fine, Shiva is highest. But we say that beyond Shiva there is Parama Shiva. And Shiva becomes Parama Shiva only when Shakti fully manifests herself. When Shakti is dormant, you don't have Parama Shiva. Only when Shakti has fully manifested herself in Shiva, Shiva becomes Parama Shiva. So that is where Shaiva Tantras are eternally indebted to the Shakta Tantras. So even Shankaracharya in his Saundarya Lahari says that, the line is, Manastvam Vyomatvam Marudasi Manusarathidasi Twamapastvam Bhumi Twai Parinatayam Nahi Param. You are earth, you are water, you are this, you are that, you are that. Finally, Twai Parinatayam, when you have evolved into, and of course this line has been inspired by the Nitya Shoroshi Karnava. Parinatayam Nahi Param, there is nothing beyond you. Because that all the like all what the roof is made of, the entire building is made of that. Sri Ramakrishna calls it Nitya Leela Yoga, and Leela Yoga is attained only when you reach the stage of Kali Brahma. That is, Brahma and Kali are one and the same. If you see only Brahma, you won't be able to reach this state. When you see that Brahma is Kali and Kali is Brahma, the two are synonymous, the two are one and the same, then only you come to this thing, this Nitya Leela Yoga. Now, one point, that it is customary to think of Shiva and Shakti relationship as a power holder and a power, Shakti and Shaktiman. Like suppose like I'm here, I have energy in my body, so I am something, and the energy is contained within me. But is the relationship between Shiva and Shakti that of something holding something else? Had this been the case, it would have been Vishishtadaitva. Shakti would have been a Vishesha of Shiva, an attribute of Shiva. Shakti is not an attribute. Say, we often use this example of fire and burning power. We say, oh, Agni and Dahika Shakti, like Shiva and Shakti are one, like the fire and his burning power. But have we ever thought about the implications of this imagery? Say, okay, is the case so that fire is something and the burning power is something contained within fire? We tend to think like this, right? But just imagine, had there been, how does fire exist? Fire exists by burning. The moment, like you have all the oil, the what to say, the mainly oil, or say other fuels, only when these things are supplying the burning force, as long as the burning process is going on, the fire will be there. The moment the burning stops, fire will die down. So burning is the very existence of fire. It is not something contained, some attribute contained. Burning power is fire. Now say an earthen pot. Now, would you say that earth is contained within the pot, or the pot is the earth and the earth is the pot? What would you say? Or say, what is the sun? The sun contains energy. But does the sun contains energy, or sun itself is a mass of energy? The mass of energy itself is the sun. How would you look at it? Similarly, Shakti is not an attribute. I said Sara. She is the very essence. When you say Shiva, what is Shiva? The answer is Shakti. What and that. Existence and essence. What is Shiva? Shiva is that dynamic energy. So Shiva and Shakti are synonymous. That is why the Shaiva Shastras call it Paramashiva, the Shakta Shastras call it Parashakti. Now, even the Shaiva system, like the Pratyabhigya Hridaya Shemraja says, Chiti Swatantra Vishwasiddhi Hetu. Mind it, he calls the ultimate consciousness Chitti. There is an E added at the end. So E is Shakti. So Chitti, then all the term Chit is feminine, like a feminine gender, but the E at the end, it emphasizes the Shaktihood in it. So the consciousness force. So ultimate, what we call consciousness is consciousness force or consciousness energy. That is what is celebrated as Paramashiva. See, when we say Shiva Shakti, we tend to think that Shiva plus Shakti is equal to Shiva Shakti. No, I have discussed this point in my book Dashamahavidya. It is Shiva is equal to Shakti, or Shakti is equal to Shiva, not Shiva plus Shakti. And that is what is called Paramashiva or Parashakti. Now, this encompasses the entire. So, you see how the Shaiva philosopher, Abhinavagupta, although he's a clever man, although in order to appease his Shaivite audience, Shaivite readers, he had to formulate a Shaiva discourse in Tantra Loka. But there is a subtle undercurrent of Shakta tendency in it. And at times it even comes out because Abhinavagupta, or else, he says that Shiva is Turiya, Shiva Tattva is Turiya, but Shakti Tattva is Turiyatita, beyond Turiya. Why? In the scheme, Shakti Tattva comes after Shiva Tattva. In like logically, she should have been Turiya and Shiva Tattva Turiyatita, but it's the other way around. Because the scheme is formed according to the Prakriya Shastra of the Shaiva Siddhantas. But the Shakta currents, that flows under it, the undercurrent of the Shakta tendency make this philosophy inclined toward the Shara Sastras. That is why he had this 37 tattva beyond the Jayaratha would argue like fanatically that no, there can be 37 tattva, whatever. But this is the fact. There is a Tatvatita in the sense that it incorporates all the assimilates all the tattvas. While all the other philosophies they reject the world, the Shaiva philosophy they embraces the world in such a way that it is made one into it. Okay, so here it's called Anuttara Trika, and as I said, Trika is the worship. Originally, it is the system of an esoteric system based upon the worship of three goddesses, Para, Para, and Apara. Philosophically, Para is made to mean the transcendental non-dual Shakti. Para, Para is the intermediary stage, and Apara is the dualistic thing. Remember, the final stage integrates all these things. Not that you exclude duality. Duality is integrated. Duality is not excluded in the ultimate non-dual stage. And here, from Trika, we enter into Krama. So, what is Krama? Now, the scheme of revelations from Trika, like in the scheme from Trika, we gradually enter into Krama, which is the highest stage. And at the Krama stage, you see that all these three goddesses, Para, Para, and Apara, they are integrated into Kala Samkarshini. Now, the concept of Kala Samkara, the Krama system, it has a long history. Now, usually, whenever we talk about Krama, we directly jump into Abhinava Gupta's this Tantra Loka Chaturthanika. But no, Krama has a long history. Like like the earliest text, the Jayadrat Shyamala, from there, one stream like got kaulized under Matchendranatha, and then the philosophy, now the whole concept of yoga, like a Shivananda, and this Mahanaya, the Mahartha system of Krama, based on the yogini Krama, the flow of yoga. Now, this is something we need to understand very carefully. What is the Samvit chakra? In Krama, Krama means sequence. What sequence? In the Krama worship, you don't have one single goddess, rather a sequence of goddesses worshipped together. For example, the Dashamahavidya is a Krama. The goddesses worship in a sequence. Now, this later got philosophized as Samvit Krama. That is, sequence of flow of consciousness. Something is flowing within our consciousness. Now, I'm coming into it. Do I have time? Garidi? I need a little time to like explain this.
Okay, you can take 10 minutes more.
Okay. No, 10 minutes like I do already have. Okay, fine. Let me summarize the matter. Now, tell me one thing. Whenever we see something, whenever we see the world, is it something outside the range of our consciousness? This laptop is here. I would say, okay, fine, but there is a laptop. But is this laptop existing outside my knowledge of it? I am knowing that this laptop is existing. That is why I can see this laptop. This extent applies to anything and everything in the universe. The like multiverses, universes, right to a like mobile phone. Everything comes under this rule that everything is within our consciousness. We are knowing certain things. That is why it is existing for us. There is nothing beyond illumination. Okay, now there's nothing beyond Samvit. Now, whenever there is a perception, whenever I see this laptop, what is exactly happening? When I say, I see a laptop, thanks a lot. I see a laptop. First of all, I become aware of my own existence, my own pramata, something that receives the knowledge. Pramata consciousness, again, receiving is a problematic term, which produces knowledge, I should say. Pramata means someone, pramana, we don't mean evidence here, not the general sense. Pramana means knowing. The knower, I am the knower. We first become aware of the knower, then the process of knowing is sequentially released. And finally, you have the laptop in front of me. So I see a consciousness. Isn't there is a sequence in perception from the subject to the object. And then the reverse movement, the laptop, I see first, I see the laptop from the object, the process of seeing becomes more predominant. And finally, I see it, even the process is withdrawn into the knower, the knowledge, and the known. Isn't there a sequence in every perception that we're having every moment in this world? And this sequence is called Krama. Now, why is the now? Am I clear? Pramata, Pramana, Prameya. The one, the knowledge, so the knower, the process of knowing, and the object of knowledge. From the knower to the object, again from the object back to the knower. Every perception, every cognitive awareness operates through the scheme. Now, this scheme, Krama, is exactly what is called Kala. Kala means Krama, time. Time is always a sequential thing. So you see, everything around is operating within a Krama which is called Kala. Now, what if this sequence is withdrawn back? From the object is withdrawn back to subject, and then we see the object and the subject in a non-distinguished entity. Since subject, knowing process, object, everything has been. Imagine that whenever I'm seeing something, suppose some energy, some yogini comes out of consciousness and forms a I. Another yogini comes out, forms a person, am seeing. Another yogini and forms a laptop. The laptop is a yogini. This the flow of energy, energy consciousness from within to without, again from without to within. This process is going on in a circular way. And when this scheme is integrated into an undivided whole, this sequential scheme, it becomes the integration of the object and the subject. So what happens? This kala is withdrawn into somebody is drawing the kala, somebody is drawing the kala into herself. That energy is Kali, who Kala Samkarshini. She pulls time. Energy, time spreads, Kali pulls it back. It again spreads, Kali pulls it back. So that is Kala Samkarshini. That is why she is called Kali or Kala Samkarshini. So what we see that the entire process, entire creation from the subject, object, knowing, everything is but an mode, a mode of the yoginis that are flying. And when these yogi, now in our case, we are now bound creatures, baddha jiva. In our case, the energies they're flying in a very constrained way. Their movements are restricted by the sanskaras we are having. But what if these energies are purified? And then I see that all what I'm seeing around is actually yoginis flying flying freely in the ether of consciousness. They're totally engaged in ecstasy of bliss. They're flying the utsava. They're performing an utsava of bliss within my consciousness. And I'm so unfortunate that I am not able to see that cosmic play, that cosmic grand dance, the cosmic utsava of yoginis, and I only see a very narrow sequential process of perception flying. Am I clear? I don't know whether I'm being like whether I'm clear or not. Okay, so this is actually Krama. Okay, only one thumb means not that very clear. Had there been a love sign, I would understood that it's clear. Okay, I mean, let me clarify a bit. Actually, the way we are perceiving the world from our present condition and the way we shall be perceiving it from the point when we our Shivahood is totally manifested, the two would be different. In the case of Shiva, he would be viewing the entire cosmic process as a joyful festival of the yoginis. Yoginis flying freely in the ether of consciousness. My eye sense is a yogini. Senses are yoginis. The objects are yoginis. All what you see around a yogini is flying. And they're flying freely. They are not limited. They are not constrained. That is what Krama is. Now, in this Krama system, okay, now I can see certain love sign means things are clear. Okay. Now, like a ship, like moving to the next point. Now, this sequence of yoginis actually has been understood as the Panchavaha, the five-fold cycle or the five flows. What are the five flows? First, there is Vami Vomeshwari, this Vyoma Vameshwari, which is the fundamental ground of consciousness from where this whole sequence evolves. Then there is the Anakhya. No, first the Bhasa. Bhasa means illumination. This is illumination. Then Anakhya, Samhara, Sthiti, and Srishti. In the reverse order, Srishti, Sthiti, Samhara, Anakhya, and Bhasa. So considering it from the Bhasa point of view, first I see that there is a fundamental ground in my consciousness from where this whole cycle emerges, the whole cycle of perception. That is Vamajomeshwari. Sorry, this Vyoma Vameshwari, the ground. Then the energy, the yogini first evolves into a subjective space, that is khechari. Okay, the nomenclature differs according to text. Sometimes, somewhere it is Vyoma Vameshwari, khechari, dikchari, gochari, bhuchari. Somewhere it is Vyoma Vameshwari, khechari, bhuchari, samhara bhakshini, raudreshwari. It differs, the nomenclature differs, but the fundamental idea is that all these different stages, first of all, there is the ground, then the subjective, the ground, which is bhasa, the ground that illumines everything, bhasa. Then you the anakhya, where the subjective consciousness first comes. Then the outer, the inner, the antakaranas, the inner senses. Then the outer senses, and then the object. You can see how consciousness flows from inside to outside. So this forms the five cycles of yoginis. Now, Krama. When we reach the stage of Krama, the entire Shaiva scheme of 36 Tattva, that too gets integrated into this sequence. The 36 Tattva, the Kha Chakra Panchaka Stotra, that says that the 36 Tattvas, they are part of the Anakhya cycle, the subjective cycle. Okay, so Krama is a stage higher than Trika. That is the stage of Kali. That is why, although now this Kali, the ultimate stage, since all dualities dissolve into an undivided whole, an undefined whole, Nisvabhava, that has no like determinate nature, that this is black, this is white, this is yellow, that is Nisvabhava, without any determinate nature. So that is called Nisvabhava. Kali, she is Shunya. Shunya doesn't mean non-existent or void. Shunya here means the undeterminate point, the non-polar, where all polarity, subject object, two poles, the transcendence immanence, subject object, the two poles have dissolved into an undivided whole. That is called void. That is Shunya, and that is Kali. You see, Kali is black. You can see why is Kali black? Because she is Shunya. She is beyond our understanding. That is why she is black. And there, what happens? Even the aham, the meeting is at the end of its scheduled time. What to do? I'm yet to finish. Okay.
No.
What happens?
So,
should I continue?
please carry on.
Okay.
Please carry on.
So this thing, this shunya is beyond any even beyond the subjective awareness. I said pramata, pramana, all these are modifications of the yoginis. So when the yoginis, they are full, they have now fully evolved into they're in the full form. They even can, we see that all these things are happening within that void. So that shunya is, you see how that is wonderfully described in Shivananda's verse. He says that avyayam akulam ameyam vigalita sadasad viveka kallolam jayati prakasha vibhavastheetam kalya paramatham. Avyaya, that is what to say, that has no change. Akulam, technical term. Ameyam, that cannot be measured, that is beyond measurement. Vigalita sadasad viveka kallolam. Sadasad vigalita kallolam means this whole distinction, the whole point of being and non-being, the difference between being and non-being. I exist and I do not exist. Even that dissolves. Kali is even beyond the distinction between existence and non-existence. Sadasad, the difference between Sadasad melts into her. Jayati Prakasha Vibhavasthitam, she who has who has fallen with the the treasure of Prakasha. Okay, she is vested with the treasure of Prakasha. Kalya Paramadham, that is the supreme abode of Kali. Now, in later texts like Mahanaya Prakasha, they have negotiated with the Pratyabhigya. Okay, did I talk about Purnahanta? Oh, I missed. I'm really sorry, I missed this point. Now, in Pratyabhijna system, I'm going back, it says that in the Supreme Shiva, Parama Shiva, where the subjective experience integrates the object into itself, there is a total, what to say, a holistic experience of subjective consciousness, aham. And aham, now see, when I see something outside my consciousness, that becomes idam. Pratyabhijna says that no, the idam is actually the subjective, the vimarsha of the subjective consciousness, aham vimarsha. She is projecting herself out as idam, and once that is integrated into the aham, it becomes the purna hanta, the complete aham. Krama goes even beyond that. Krama says that even when we are at the stage of purna hanta, there is some amount of sense of being and non-being into it. But even that dissolves. Even Shiva loses awareness of his own existence when he is in Kali. Shiva merges into Kali. Shiva loses his way. Kandishiko vibhur bhave. Shiva doesn't find his way when he's entered into Kali. Kali and Shiva are one. Shiva's Shakti is Kali. But she's that point of Shiva's consciousness which Shiva himself cannot objectivate. Where Shiva himself is something like in a state of samadhi, I lose awareness of myself as, oh, I do exist. This definitive deterministic awareness of myself is dissolved into samadhi. That is why in the iconography you see Shiva lying as a corpse under her feet, because this whole awareness of I exist, I'm aware of my cognitive awareness, of course, there. Even in samadhi, even in the nirvana state, you have cognitive awareness. But their cognitive awareness transcends even its subjective mode, this aham bodha. Even the aham bodha is transcended by the cognitive awareness. It's like an intense feeling of bliss. Whenever we're in an intense feeling of bliss, we suspend our awareness of own existence, right? Don't we do? Just forget myself and enjoy the bliss like to its fullest extent. That is the stage of Shiva merging into Kali. Otherwise, they're the one and the same thing. So even though Shiva and Shakti are one, by subtle degree, Shakti is one step higher than Kali. And in a previous lecture, when I said this, a group actually came to attack me, that Abhinava Gupta, in a text called Tantrochaya, not Tantraloka, he says that if Parama Shiva is the 37th Tattva, Kala Samkarshini in the form of Chanda Yogeshwari, she is the 38th Tattva, even beyond Paramashiva. Because she is that point where even Shiva's awareness, Shiva's Purnahanta finds rest. That Purnahanta is the resting ground of the whole world experience, right? But Kali is the resting ground of Purnahanta himself. Okay, so Mahakala devours the universe and Mahakali devours Mahakala herself. This is a Bengal Tantra thing, although not directly connected. I'll be coming to it later. Now, the point is that when we talk about this extremely sophisticated, rich philosophy of Kashmir Shaivism, now, is there any connection? Now, Bengal has its own tantric system, its own tantric school of Kalikula, very rich and surviving system. In Kashmir, you hardly have living traditions around, but in Bengal, the living tradition is thriving. So, what we say that, but Bengal lacks an organized Jnana Kanda, an organized, systematized philosophical canon. Now, is it possible? Was there, like, is there any historical connection between the Bengal school of Kali worship and the Kashmirian Krama school? We are left with no evidence as to that. Subtle, say, suppose in the worship of Kali, like anybody who performs Kali Puja, like if you like look at the line of gurus through whom the mantra have come. You have Matsyendranath, you have Gorakshanath, and they all belong to the Krama, the Kaula system. Matsyendranath initiated the Yogini Kula from Kamrupa. And then you have like the whole concept, like the now this thing is a part of the Kaula system. Now Kaula is the union of Kula and Akula, the individualized thing and the infinite thing. When the two become one, not that you have the absolute at the cost of the individual. The individual is integrated in the absolute, and the absolute is integrated in the this individual thing. Then only you have this Kaula experience. But this Kaula school is very much common to the both. The Kali Kula, it's very much a Kaula system, and the Kashmirian Krama to integrate it into the like was integrated with the Kaula system. And of course, the Bhairava, the Asitanga Bhairava, Dudu Bhairava, who form the Bhairava canon, they too are very much a part of the retinue of Kali. Now, these are subtle questions. We are left with subtle hints, but not enough. Like we don't have adequate materials to come to a very definite conclusion. Still, I would say that Bengal has tried in its own way to make its own canon of Kali philosophy, because although they didn't have like when these philosophies like that was like encoded into the like in the rituals, that was articulated and documented in textual form. They didn't have any hermeneutic tool as to the Kashmir Shaivism, the rich school. They only had Sankhya Vedanta. Even with that, they formed a wonderful philosophy, because even though Bengal system is based on the has accepted the Sankhya, it has accepted in order to gain legitimization. Okay, or else the mainstream, the smarters won't accept them. Okay, although they have accepted the Sankhya thing, they have rejected the Purusha Prakriti duality. Because here in Bengal Tantra, Purusha and Prakriti are not separate, they're one. And Prakriti in Sankhya is Jara, is unconscious. But in Bengal, Prakriti is Devi herself, who is consciousness par excellence. Like, she is Chidrupini. Prakriti is Chidrupini. And she is not merely Saguna, she is Saguna and Nirguna both. Mundamala Tantra, like in this text, Shiva himself says that when Prakriti is Saguna, I am become Saguna. When Prakriti is Nirguna, I am Nirguna. And when Prakriti and Purusha fuse into one point, that ultimate point is Kali. In Kali, Satyaloki, like this is a verse of the Nirvana Tantra, Satyaloki Nirakara Mahajyoti Swarupini, Maya Chidatmana Chanakakara Rupini. And when she splits, Vidha Bhinna Yadunmukhi, Shiva Shakti Vibhagena Jayate Srishti Kalpana. So Kali combines in herself both Shiva and Shakti in as one, like two halves of a gram. Just as in a gram you have two halves joined with each other, so within Kali, Shiva and Shakti are fused into one. Not just that. So how did Kali gain this upper hand above Shiva? Here again, we find an influence of the Bauddha school of Shunya. The philosophy of Shiva and Shakti, I don't have enough time, I would have discussed in detail. In Bengal Tantra, that is highly influenced by the Bauddha Tantra of Shunyavadya, Pancha Shunya Sita Tara, Sarvante Kalika Sita, then Shunyalayam Kitva Krishna Varna Vidhayasa, and all reference to Kali as Shunya, which is also there in Krama. And apart from that, just as in Krama, we see that even the Shakti and Shaktiman divide. When we say Shiva is Shaktiman, Kali is Shakti, now the question arises, okay, fine. When we say the Shakti and Shaktiman, a duality is implied. Duality is implied, it means that the duality must have been projected from somewhere, or else how could this duality come the ultimate stage non-dual? Who projects the duality? Can Shiva project it? Because Shiva is static. If considered separate from Shakti, of course, Shiva has no activity. Who can project? Who can project the duality of Shiva and Shakti? Shakti Mana and Shakti. Shakti alone can do that. So ultimately, behind the duality of Shiva and Shakti, Shakti alone is there. Shakti alone makes a subtle distinction within herself as Shakti and Shaktiman, and that becomes Shiva and Shakti. Even Abhinavagupta acknowledges it in his Tantra Loka. There is a verse, Esha Vastuta Ekaiva Parakalasya Shankarshini Shaktimad Yogena Yamalatvam Prapaddai. Kala Sankarshini is one. She herself unites with the Shaktiman and becomes a pair. She projects the Shaktiman out of herself. Shiva is projected out of Shakti. You have in the like in text like in Bengal, you have in text like this Shakti Sangama Tantra that she looks at Pratibimbam, like she from her own reflection. Kali is the ultimate point where Shiva and Shakti are one, and like they have united into non-dual whole. Kali is that point. At the time of creation, she looks at her own reflection, and from that reflection, she creates Mahakala. This has a connection with the Bauddha Prakasha school, because you can't understand this in terms of the all what we have like till now studied as the relationship between Shiva and Shakti. The standard Shiva Shakti relationship, as explained in the Shiva Shakta Agamas, won't suffice to explain this. This has to be understood in terms of the Bauddha concept of Pragya and Upaya. The Pragya is the energy that stays back, like at the back, and upaya is compassion if he functions like in the Prangic school. Of course, a Prangic school is there where Buddha and Pragya Paramita and Buddha, Adi Buddha. Buddha is born from Pragya according to the Prangic school, not all the schools. So, and he's like there's a passage from Advaya Vajra Samgraha which says that Pragya, that's a Buddha text, the Pragya, her reflection is Upaya, and they are like husband and wife, compassion and wisdom. This Pragya and Karuna. When they unite, then only there is Sahaja bliss. Even here, Kali, after projecting forth Mahakala, she unites with him in a Viparita Rati mood. Viparita Rati is where the female is above and the male is below. It's sexual union. You see the iconography of Kali, where you see Sadashiva. So Sadashiva is the Shaiva Siddhanta deity, has long been transcended. Above that you have Bhairava, and above that you have Kali. This is not Sankhya. You would be finding books which is, oh, this is Sankhya, Purusha and Prakriti. Even when I went to Navadvip and like when the Shoboshiva temple, it was Sankhya. No, it's not Sankhya. It is Shunya and Upaya. Not exactly the Bauddha thing, because in the Bauddha scheme, Shunya is inactive. Kali is anything but inactive. Kali is fully dynamic. It is a Shaktaized version of the Bauddha concept, where Kali, she transcends Shiva. She, as the sadhakas have explained, even my Guru Deva says that Shiva's Ikara, when we say Shiva, the E in him comes from Shakti, right? Only when he's active, he's functioning. You see Shiva in a dynamic active, like state. When Shakti, she withdraws that Ikar from him, the Ikar comes from Shakti, E in Shiva. Removed, it becomes Shava. And this Ikar comes from Shakti. When Shakti withdraws the Ikar, he becomes Shava, and Shakti is bliss, Nirvana. So, what is happening here? I am having an awareness of myself as, oh, yes, I am Shiva, I am existing. This Ikar, this awareness is me. But this awareness is coming from a higher energy, which is totally void, which is Nirvana. When I'm in a state of samadhi, what is happening? This whole energy through Kundalini is rising above and is merging in back. First, you have Shiva and Shakti meeting at a point I have discussed above. Then gradually Shakti begins to rise above. What does she do? Even when you say Shiva and Shakti in a Yamala state, there is a duality between the two. Even this duality has to be dissolved. So what does Kali do? She rises above Shiva. When she rises above Shiva, she absorbs his Shivahood into him, into herself, and then she alone is Shiva and Shakti in one. She is then Parabrahma. That is what is Parabrahma. And since it's a Nirvana, it's almost like the ultimate experience, like that is a sexual imagery, because this sexual intercourse is not for the sake of procreation. It is a nirvana state. It is withdrawn back. It rises. The energy is not flowing downwards to procreation. It is being withdrawn up. Okay. So that is the Viparita Rati. She has Viparita, reverse union. Kali sitting above. She's making him dead. Like the stage of orgasm where the mind turns nirvikalpa, the consciousness turns nirvikalpa, where the energy has been taken up into the final point, Kali. So, so now what you feel about the nature of the absolute? Is it static or dynamic? That's my question. I leave it.